Ouais, Mathieu.
I mean, during the session, close the mic. That's safest, huh?
Pardon?
Yeah, we close the mic, and I think I will close my video also. It was just...
Yeah. Anyone who's not directly speaking should mute themselves when someone is speaking, you know, so people just become live when they do. I'm not sure if you can see the countdown on yours in the top right hand corner. Brilliant. So you'll know when people will begin to arrive.
If someone puts a question, we will see it on the Q&A. Yes?
But only you will see it, and then if it's in the Q&A, it's only visible to presenters and admin, and if you want to then publish it so it's visible to all attendees, you have to hover your mouse over it and click publish.
Question, see whether I can publish it.
Perfect.
And the participants should rather use the chat or the Q&A?
That's essentially up to you as the organizers of the session, how you prefer and how much you want them to communicate.
Okay. Nicholas, we don't have anyone from Connect.
Mathieu has connected, but apparently as an attendee, which is why how can we see who has joined other than the presenters?
We can see as admin. I'm not sure if you as presenters will be able to see that, or can you see a box that says attendees?
It says 0.
Then in that case, no one's joined yet. We have 15 seconds and then they'll start joining, at which point I'll mute myself, and any questions, send in the chat.
Very good. So, welcome to our session, Co-Design of Cluster 4 Industry, Working for Resilience in the Green and Digital Transition. I extend a warm welcome to all of you on behalf of the 4 co-chairs for this cluster, Lorena Boix-Alonso, Matthias Petschke, Slavomir Tokarski. So we are the key departments in the Commission behind this cluster, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our session here. Lorena will close and conclude the session. Slavek and Matthias will animate the session tomorrow on partnerships in Cluster 4. So let's have a look at the key strategic orientations for our cluster. The 4 strategic orientations you see here are valid for the whole of Horizon Europe and very valid for our Cluster 4. They will be the guide and compass for our investments over the next 7 years. Most important is, of course, the strategic orientation A, promoting open strategic autonomy. C, making Europe the first digitally led, circular, climate neutral and sustainable economy. And D, creating a more resilient, inclusive and democratic European society. It is very clear the importance of progress in digital, industrial and space technologies cannot be exaggerated. These technologies shape our societies, our environment, and our economy, of course. COVID-19 crisis also created a new urgency around these topics. And we want this cluster to be a crucial tool in the twin green and digital transition, and in enhancing the resilience and flexibility of Europe's industrial base, both in terms of technologies and supply chains, or better, value creation systems, ecosystems, to reduce the EU dependencies on third partners. We explicitly in this cluster recognize the role and needs of people as users, as workers, and as citizens. Sustainability and inclusiveness are key challenges we need to address. So let's look at the vision, the overarching vision behind this cluster of 4: digital, industry, and space. It is the vision of a Europe that is shaping competitive and trusted technologies for European industry with global leadership in key areas, enabling Europe to be in control of the twin transition, namely moving to production and consumption that respects the boundaries of our planet, while achieving a digital transformation that respects Europe's values and requirements. And we want to do so while maximizing the benefits for all parts of society in a variety of social, economic, and territorial contexts in Europe. So let's look at the objectives for today's session. This session is about co-creation. The Art I Days are an opportunity to collect more input from you, from stakeholders and citizens. Some of you may have participated in the survey we launched on the strategic orientations for Horizon Europe. Thank you very much for that. We are quite happy. There were 22% of participants which are not usually participating in Horizon. There's a high interest in Cluster 4. There's strong support for the impacts we have formulated. There were comments pointing to the relevance of the mission on climate neutral cities, but also the mission on climate adaptation, the links with the European Research Council, the European Innovation Council, but also the Digital Europe program were highlighted. So to make best use of our precious time this morning, I will go straight to the point by showing you the 6 expected impacts which will structure our Cluster 4 digital, industry, and space. In each slide, you will, and here you see the destinations are also the expected impacts. You will see in each slide the titles of the investment priorities we currently envisage. And based on this, we want your feedback. Which elements would you like to see stressed better or more, further developed? Do you have new ideas and new ways to propose to support resilience in a post-COVID practice? Or where do you see strong synergies with other clusters or programs? So let's start with these headlines. Yeah? Here we talk about climate neutral, circular, and digitized production, the first destination, expected impact. And you see the subtitles or the investment portfolios on manufacturing, green flexible, but also digital, a new way to build, circularity for resources, and integration of renewables. I go quickly through that because the importance is that we show you just the overall orientation and then have your feedback. So next one is on digitized resilience, resilient industry. Here we talk about circular value chains, materials, green, sustainable materials for the benefit of society, and of course also improving resilience and preparedness. The next one, a third, is about the data economy, super important, data sharing, part of the European data space, data analytics, high-end computing, of course, and cloud, all mentioned in the State of the Union speech of our president last week. The next one is about the emerging technologies. So this is the things we know that we don't know yet, but the areas we will further develop. And you see them listed here. 6G is just one example. Tomorrow's robots, leadership in emerging enabling technologies, quantum, graphene, all are here. The next one is about space, super important for Europe's competitiveness, space systems, space capacity, services related to space, development of applications, space entrepreneurship, and more targeted and strategic actions supporting the EU space sector more generally. And the last one is about the human-centered and ethical development in industrial technologies. Here is, we talk about artificial intelligence based on trust, an internet of trust, new digital interactions, digital learning technologies in particular. So let's move to the questions we thought were most relevant, but of course we are attentive to all of your questions, which we would like to address this morning. The way to interact with us is you cannot speak directly. The best way would be to make a comment in the chat or ask a question in the question and answer session. So the best way is to tap in your question in the chat function or your comment so that we can get the discussion started. Who would like to kick off the discussion? So we have a question. Okay, thanks a lot. So let's see. When will the work program be released? Yeah, let's talk about timing. All this depends, of course, on the overall agreement on the long-term EU budget for the next 7 years. But let's assume that we have this agreement before the end of the year. In that case, we will adopt the legal framework. The trilogue is going on this Horizon Europe legal framework right now, in parallel with the finalization of the budget, the long-term EU budget. And once the legal program is adopted, co-decision, the framework program, we can adopt the strategic plan. That should be early next year. And then in the first quarter of 2021, we will be able to and hope to be able to adopt the work programs for Horizon Europe. Then there's a very good question here from about the difference between destinations and impacts. It is simply the transition or the translation of the expected impact. The destination is what we have formulated in the strategic plan. This is a new element of Horizon Europe, which should enable us to have not only a more inclusive programming for the first 4 years of the program, but also a more programming more related to the political priorities. And this is where we talk about the expected impacts, which are then translated into destinations where for each cluster, where we can go to a higher level of detail, specifying within the scope of the strategic plan what we want to achieve. Okay, I note, and thanks for that, I note that you are proposing a strong focus on deployment of technologies. Yes, it is important for us to be clear. We no longer have the luxury of time in research. We need, of course, a good balance. We cannot put all on the highest technology readiness levels. We need a balanced approach throughout Horizon Europe. But this cluster is in general focused on something which is closer to the market readiness. There is a question about the link between this cluster and any of the missions. That's a very, very important question, and it came out. So the missions are, let me start by this. The missions are cross pillar 2, so the clusters pillar of Horizon Europe. This is the home of the missions. It doesn't mean that the European Research Council or the European Innovation Council would not contribute, but the home, the basis is pillar 2. There is no mission which is directly placed in our cluster 4, like for instance the cancer mission in the health cluster. But I think we can contribute to practically all of the missions we are currently considering. And this morning, you might have seen the presentation from the mission boards of the missions and their intentions, what to do. So it's quite clear for climate neutral cities, what we can do with digital technologies, but also with renovation, which is part of our cluster. It is also, when we talk about climate adaptation, relevant that the technology we have for resilience, for flexible manufacturing are relevant. So I see quite a number of links to various missions. Yes, and there's one of you asking for an increase of the research and innovation budget. Of course, we in the Commission had proposed a substantial increase also after the pandemic broke out, which showed and confirmed the key role of research innovation in responding and mastering the COVID virus. But I think we also have to look into the overall situation and the breakthrough the EU has achieved in July with the overall agreement on the next generation EU, a completely new budget structure, where we hope also to make good use of it for research and innovation.
The role of materials and question. Materials are everywhere.
Okay, I have a question on materials.
Materials are everywhere.
Materials are in several destinations. Okay, I have a question here on the accessibility, and you've posted a question. Let me see. Okay, yes. So we can publish this one. Maybe I pose a bit in the chat and go through the questions which we have received. So the final version of the strategic plan I've answered. I support what we see here, that destination 6 inclusiveness is very important. We see in high tech already a phenomenon of, if I grossly simplify, the winner takes it all. So an accumulation in centers of excellence. We need to do a lot for knowledge diffusion in inclusiveness, and the current COVID crisis will also increase the pressures on our efforts, pressures on equality and inclusiveness. So we need to be very active there, fully agreed and part of our programming. So maybe what I do, I go through the questions and make them visible to you, that you can also vote on them. Okay. Yes, maybe you can vote on them now that they are visible, and then I can come back to them in order of priority. In the meantime, and I'm very grateful. I think we start to have an exchange here, a discussion. Thanks for engaging with us in this digital form. In the meantime, I'll go back to the chat. The accessibility. What was the question about accessibility? I don't see it now. Well, this is related, I suppose, it's related to accessibility of research results. We have, in relation to COVID research, changed our approach. We launched actually new calls for COVID, be it diagnostics, treatment, or vaccines. We invested since March 460 million euros Horizon money, Horizon 2020, in more than 130 projects which are starting, and ask these projects to be more open in sharing results. So making scientific papers, data, and results publicly available without delay, and also making the results available in non-exclusive, royalty-free licenses during the pandemic. This is our contribution to making results more accessible. There, you underline here the link with the Digital Europe program, which indeed is a very, very close link. The concern is that the timing of the political process and information level is okay. The information level is rather limited. Okay, that is not our intention. So you'll have more opportunities to engage with us as regards Horizon Europe, and I'm sure my colleagues from the connectivity department have similar actions, and there's a digital hub actually also during the RI days to make information available. But thank you very much for this feedback. Well taken, well noted. Has there been any trade-off made about the various partnerships in Cluster 4? I'm not sure whether we need a trade-off. We have certain framework conditions for partnerships. They should not exceed 50% of the budget. We have traditionally quite a number of partnerships in this area of Horizon Investment, which is currently the leadership in industrial technologies pillar. We have in the strategic plan, and the draft is public, indicated the areas for partnership. Actually, in discussion with member states and parliament, a couple of additional partnerships have been added. So we are now, I think, overall at about 44 candidate partnerships. We have put on the website the guidance documents from these partnerships to show where the investment priorities would be. And on that basis, we'll continue to finalize our decision on partnerships for Horizon Europe, be it institutionalized with an own legal responsibility, personality, or co-programmed. Do we know whether the current pandemic will affect the work program? So that has several dimensions. First, we will learn from our colleagues in the health program that we need a flexibility clause, because we've seen how completely unexpected events require very fast action. And we have, as regards COVID, been able, and I mentioned the projects we launched, we have been able to react quite quickly thanks to such a clause which allows programming for unexpected events. And I think that is one of the lessons learned. In terms of budget, it will, I think the budget distribution as it is currently discussed also with member states and parliament will not be affecting our cluster. Actually, we have seen that the industrial base flexibility in production is super important also in that COVID context. So we will look further into resilience. Actually, the emphasis on resilience and the value creation systems, the partial reshoring of these supply chains to Europe is a consequence of the crisis and will have an impact on our cluster. Will there be a separate work program on missions? Yes, that will be an own part, making it visible what we do on missions. But for this, we need a bit more time because the missions are just about to start and we need to make sure that we reach out in the widest possible way. Okay, and here we have, and I'm very grateful for that, we have some elements for which should be further developed. So importance of regional impact of research innovation. How can we manage the transition to local metropolitan areas towards a circular region? Thank you very much for that suggestion. The link with the digital program, I think I've mentioned. Yeah, what is the role of public-private partnerships? So in our current draft strategic plan, we envisage a co-programmed partnership. That means that that is the successor of the current public-private partnerships, contractual partnerships. We envisage a new partnership on Process for Planet, which is about the process industry, sustainability, circularity hubs, partnership made in Europe, which would be the successor and enlarging what we currently do with the factories of the future. And we would contribute to a partnership on clean steel, which is partly in our cluster and in cluster 5. So in my personal view, we are quite well advanced with the preparation of these partnerships. We have a good level of ambition, but the final decision on these partnerships will, of course, depend on what we have in terms of budget and what we are able to agree with our partners from industry in terms of investments. So these partnerships, if they're contractual, they will fully be integrated in the work program. The topics will be there as if they are independent of whether they are part of the partnership or not. That is different for the joint undertakings with their own legal personality. They will, these programs will, or investments topics will not be a part of the work program. Yes, thanks for the point on standardization. We think that standardization is extremely important for the rollout, technology diffusion, and will envisage specific actions in cooperation with the standardization bodies on standardization. There is, and actually, we have a mandate to develop new knowledge valorization policies together with member states, and we have mapped what is currently existing in terms of instruments, and we are engaging with member states in what we call a mutual learning exercise on knowledge valorization policies, using all the channels we have to bring research results to value for society. And that is also part of the cross-cutting actions we are doing here. Innovation funding for SMEs. It's not only in Cluster 4, but also in Cluster 4. In the feedback, in the discussion we had with member states, it was clear that the way we describe the investment priorities need to be, it needs to be open to SMEs and make explicit that SMEs are welcome. I'm quite proud that our current participation patterns see a very high participation of SMEs in our current cluster on nano advanced production and materials. And I think that should continue and will continue in Horizon Europe. We have now, what is the Cluster 4, we reference quite a lot to other clusters. Okay. Thank you for that comment. There's a colleague who reminds us that other clusters do not cross-reference as actively as we do in our cluster to industry, digital industry and space. So that is something we can take up. Thanks a lot. Well noted and well taken. Yes, close connection with food and bioeconomy. Okay, and we should not lose sight with of industrial biotechnology. Okay, well noted as well, acknowledged.
Link to the EIC and Maris Fodowska. EIC.
I come back to the question in a moment. So, will the digital innovation hubs continue to have a strong implementation role as they did in Horizon 2020? Absolutely, yes. Digital innovation hubs are super important for technology diffusion. We would like to do the same for other technology infrastructures, and hopefully still next week we will adopt our strategy paper on the future of the European research area, where we will also underline the importance of having a European policy on technology infrastructures. So digital innovation hubs, super important. Technology infrastructures in general, very important and that is to diffuse technology, to allow SMEs to innovate, to test, to validate, to get also help in ensuring regulatory compliance in order to be fast on the market. So I leave the chat function. You can continue to put your comments and questions in the chat function. I have a look at the questions session. So what is... there are no votes. You can also vote the questions. No, they're not yet published. I only see... So, published. Yeah, okay, good. Yes, okay, you have voted questions. Super, thank you for that. So I start from the top. How would the link with emissions happen in practice concretely. For example, a clear mention in the call details. What about the link with the public-private partnership on AI? How will that happen? Yeah, look, this is something we still need to work out in detail. The mission governance. We started by setting some principles. Today, so on mission governance. So as I mentioned, should be an own part, should be visible of the work program. The ambition is to reach out to other parts, other pillars of Horizon, but also to other programs. In the programming should go to the strategic configuration of the program committee. And this is the place when we need to make the link with co-programmed partnerships, but also institutionalized partnerships. They also have a clear role to play in missions. I welcome my colleague Lorena. Lorena, you have interrupt me whenever you want. For instance, on digital innovation hubs, if you want to add something on there is the question on the Digital Europe program and synergies, if you would come on.
Yeah.
That.
Sorry, Peter, I had, it's awful when you come from DigiConnect and you have connection problems. So I had a lot of difficulties, and my mic was not working. So, but you were really good in answering also the questions more related to digital. Yeah, just to complement on the Digital Europe program. Well, I think we have tried to explain it many times that these two programs are very complementary. Research is research, and the Digital Europe program is about deployment. So it does touch similar subjects sometimes, but from a different perspective. Well, we have tried to explain the complementarity many times. You will see when the work program is adopted how we are tackling different things. We have engaged, in fact, with the stakeholders. We published some strategic orientations. We made a public consultation about them. And now we are at the stage of the work program. So we got all the input from those public consultations. So we did engage, and we are very thankful for the input. So just to reassure you that this is not, and we are really fully coordinating with Horizon. So just to reassure on that and to confirm what Peter was saying on digital innovation hubs, I fully agree. Of course, they are extremely important, and I can only back what was already said. So we'll try to jump in now that everything works. We'll try to jump in whenever it's appropriate. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Lorena. Thank you. I'm relieved. It was quite a big challenge. Happy to have you there now, connected. So thanks for that, and please just come in whenever you see fit. So there is a question, on the missions. I think several colleagues or several questions here are about the missions, and let's be clear, these are right questions. We don't have all the answers yet. Only what we do know is that the missions are the major new instrument of Horizon Europe. If we get it right, they will have a major positive impact also in bringing EU research closer to every single person in the EU. And therefore, our ambition is high, and it can only work if we cooperate across the programs, not only Horizon, for the missions. And that requires strong leadership and governance, and more technically speaking, an own work program for the missions. And then, of course, we need to see, it's also a question of synergies, like with the European Institute for Innovation Technology or the EIC, European Innovation Council. The other investments we do in a cluster might also be relevant for missions. The roadmaps for the European Innovation Partnerships will affect Cluster 4. Yes, these roadmaps, which are the drafts are published, they are an important input for us in the programming of Cluster 4. And we count on these stakeholders to come with the best ideas, and they have done that, and they are reflected in the current first draft, which is slowly taking shape. When will we get the final version of the strategic plan? I think I've answered that, hopefully early next year. The missions, I'm still going through the questions in the question and answer. Materials are everywhere. How the potential of materials to provide solutions will be implemented in the most efficient way. I think is there an echo? Can you still hear me? Yes. Lorena, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Materials are the basis. Yeah. No materials, no fun. And we have a good experience with investments in materials. What we do see that we need to put a greater emphasis not only on safe, but also on sustainability, sustainable by design. And this is a concept which will help us in making the implementation and then the market uptake, the uptake in society, more efficient. Then there is the point on resilience post-COVID. Yes, absolutely. Let's make this link to the ecosystems, the industrial ecosystems identified so far. I see also here a link to the industry strategy adopted in March, and as our president announced last week, to the update of the strategy, which would be really about these value creation systems, perhaps which is broader than just value chains, including the ones you mentioned here.
All looks aside, the last ones.
Whenever you want me, I can jump in on others that I see a bit more for digital, but...
Yes, go.
Okay, so there is one about artificial intelligence on why are we not more proposing for funding on applications, and this is just to remind that this cluster is more about the core technology. So in other clusters, of course, you may have their possibilities for funding on applying artificial intelligence to specific sectors, whether it's health or other sectors. So that's one. Then I see one on again complementarities between the Digital Europe program and Horizon Europe. It's good that you ask these questions. Again, I can repeat what I was saying about that. We are trying to fund different things, and this is why you will see in the Digital Europe program, for example, there's a lot of procurement because precisely this is the main objective, is to procure, where you have other type of funding instruments more in Horizon, which is focusing on research. One of the ways to coordinate the two, particularly in the field of cybersecurity and in the field of supercomputing, is that we will have precisely joint undertakings to deal with the coordination. So for cyber, for example, is the cyber center, which is currently under negotiations. We are finalizing the co-legislator, the trilogues, and there the different funding will be channeled, and then it is this undertaking that will make the coordination between the two. That's the beauty of it. And this is the same also for EuroHPC, where the animal exists already, and this is through the entity that we will channel that. So again, deployment, a lot of procurement, buying even machines, for example, for HPC, testing facilities. So voila, getting much closer to the ground and in research.
Thank you, Lorena. Can we go back to the chat questions? I think we have quite a number of questions or comments here still to answer. So
the chat, so yes,
okay. So there's a very nice suggestion here. To reach the goals is to increase the collaboration between the projects once they are funded and after they are ending. That is indeed, and the example here is 3D technologies, additive manufacturing. I think that's a very important point, which we will address not only with our Horizon Results platform, which enables projects to connect, but also with what we learned, the lessons we learned from the COVID-19 research, where we have a new way of sharing results and bringing projects together. Very important point. Thanks a lot for raising it. Will there be a target budget for SME participation? No. The only target in Horizon Europe, agreed now with the co-legislators, is a climate target. No SME target, but we should not see a decline of participation of SME in Horizon Europe. I'm pretty sure that this is a shared ambition, and then the result in the implementation.
The role of SSH.
Could there be to support resilience? The ecosystems I have, materials, yes. The first calls to be published, expect to be published, hopefully best case scenario, first quarter, spring 2021. And then here, a question on artificial intelligence, Lorena. AI is a sort of commodity in applied industrial research. Why not funding smaller projects, maximum?
I just replied to that one, in fact, before. That's when I intervened, I was replying to that one. Sorry, I didn't realize I was advanced.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, thanks for the reference to the partnerships website. Funding in the ICT, which will be the difference of focus of cluster 4, aspect on digital AI cybersecurity, and the program Digital Europe. You have okay, we have replied to that. Thank you. Okay, there's support for destination 6, the human-centered inclusivity. How will this objective be realized in the forthcoming programs and calls? Standalone or integrated across programs? This will be standalone projects, topics, but of course with the ambition, so it's dedicated funding, but with the ambition to reach out across the cluster and even beyond. Concrete action to enhance interdisciplinary and intersectional approach. This is part of, I see this not only we see in Nano, where we have mathematics, bio, and physics, interdisciplinary. I see this also in relation to social sciences, humanities. You're right in pointing to the need to involve evaluators. That is very clear. Actually, I think we should also try to see whether we can make a link to the Bauhaus initiative proposed by our president, which opens up a wider category of participants also here in our cluster. So thanks a lot for this suggestion. Also throughout the project cycle, evaluation monitoring throughout the program. Okay, I see a lot of support for the inclusion of the societal dimension in digital technologies, but also beyond. Yes, the cross-referencing with the social sciences, humanities topics. Yes, we will, before finalizing the program and adopting the first work program, make clear and go through a comprehensive scrutiny whether we have enough cross-referencing and whether we have enough openness and opening explicit reference to the inclusion of social science humanities, a key success factor to be quickly value creating for the society and not fall into some technology traps. There is a comment that the enabling character of this cluster, it contributes significantly to the expected impacts from other clusters, notably health.
Very nice comment. I think we can fully agree with that comment.
Yeah. Okay, I agree. Lorena agrees. Thanks for that comment, Jan. Okay. Lorena, I see here a question. Will there be a direct awards for EU SST consortium? That's very specific. Perhaps we can come back to that later.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that one. I'll come back. Yeah.
The intersection of missions with technology. So AI involves big data, and big data is also carbon intensive. What cluster is focusing on carbon-free technology or 3D printing that is using non-metallic minerals? So 3D printing and materials, that's in our cluster. On the ambition of big data data centers, Lorena, you can say a bit more because we have a high ambition. I know you have a high ambition for IT to contribute to the Green Deal objectives.
Yeah, indeed. Sorry, I'm getting lost with all the questions. Yeah, and I see that there is in fact others, but I don't know where you are now. One question: the intersection of missions and technology, big data. Yeah, in fact, yeah, we have a lot of ambitions for the contribution of data to the Green Deal. So this, basically, what we are saying is that it will be embedded already in everything we do on data. From the 2 points of view, ICT for data and data for ICT. So how data contribute to green and how we will try to reduce, of course, the footprint on our data policies and technologies. So we will cover both.
Lorena, we still have
the one on the better regulation program. Honestly, I jumped on it, but I really don't understand that question.
Okay, I move to the question and answer session. There is one. The last one I see is that learning and upskilling is not a keyword on the slides, but should be accessible to all. Okay, learning upskilling is part of Destination 6, and accessible to all is something we should take up and make it very explicit. Thank you. Thanks a lot for this comment. There was also a question or comment about the synergies with space. And this is for all of us co-chairs very important and a huge opportunity that we have all these technologies in one cluster. It makes a difference in working together, more structured more close than we did that in Horizon 2020. And I see a lot of spillovers and mutual opportunities through the fact that we are in one cluster. Lorena, we have 8 minutes left, and at 1:30 sharp, we will be cut off. So maybe we can take 1 or 2 questions more, comments more, and then I hand over to you for the conclusions. Yeah, there's still a question here on the relation with partnership topics. That really depends on the overall budget allocation we get. And of course, we will prioritize according to the contribution to the expected impact and the ambition level we have from our industrial partners. So that will then will be the guiding principles to steer the way to an agreement to the final work program.
I see one on the digital innovation hubs for DEP, whether existing hubs can apply, and the answer is yes. The way we will do it in the Digital Europe program is that there is first a pre-selection done by member states themselves. So they propose hubs that they would like to be funded, and then among those is when then we do the calls and select the ones. And it is perfectly allowed, of course, for member states to propose in this first phase of the selection process. Is perfectly possible to propose hubs that exist already. Then, of course, if those hubs are focused on research matters, then the funding coming from DEP will be dedicated to the deployment then phase, to the to make them interconnected, for example, with other hubs in Europe, more on the capabilities. So all this is perfectly possible.
Yeah, Lorena, one short comment from me, and then I hand over to you. There is a comment with which I don't fully agree, and that is particularly important to also mention that there is a comment here that we should have the ambition to increase the budget per project to have more impact and to go beyond the fragmented research of Horizon 2020. So our approach is, and we've discussed it at several instances, is not to have a radical shift to bigger projects. And the experience is not that big budget means big impact. The experience is that we need more projects per topic, and to bring topics into a portfolio, wider portfolio, addressing a specific expected impact. And this is the logic behind the structure of the work program. So yes, we want more impact, but big, huge projects are not always are not a panacea or the solution. And from my side, thanks a lot for this. Over to you, Lorena.
Yeah, no, I will comment on that one as well, because I think there is no one size fits all. It depends very much on. I think that within cluster 4 we will probably have both. We will have big projects and we will have small projects. On what is more related to digital, we do see the beauty of big projects, but as I was saying before, it depends. Maybe for other fields like defense or more industry-related projects, it could be different. For digital, it is true that we do see the advantages of big projects, and in fact, is something that is what we are trying to do things that have strong impact. So, well, I think Peter is right that one size doesn't fit all, but that we could agree in some fields that this can be important. I think that 2 days ago, we were listening to our president mentioning this idea of doing some big things, in particular in the field of data, artificial intelligence, supercomputing. All these things are covered here. So we may want to do some big things indeed in this field, but again, we may have all type of sizes in this cluster just to to reach a common ground with Peter. Yeah. And indeed, we see in the comments that some people like the idea of big ones, others don't like it. So I think we will have for everybody's taste.
It is time to wrap up this session.
Yeah.
From my side, a very heartfelt thank you for engaging with us, for the rich discussion we had in the chat function here. A big stimulation for us, more than I expected personally. Thank you so much for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I will try to wrap up even if I missed the beginning due to my technical problems. But I think that looking at the chat and how you so well reacted to all these things, I think that's something that we can appreciate. And you said it, Peter, is that it's good that we are together in this cluster, that there are a lot of synergies, and I think that this is appreciated. And we appreciate it as well from the 4 DGs involved, that this cluster is somehow an enabler to plenty of other things. This is something that is coming very much, that it has a lot of links with other clusters. You have appreciated that as well, and we see it. We have seen a lot of questions on the links with the Digital Europe program, and this is something which is very positive. So that you start to see the links. The dream, of course, is that we one day are able to cover the whole process, from research, innovation, deployment, and that all this is fully integrated and coordinated. That will be the beauty, and that's what we are trying to do. Basically, I think that's it. I think we will take all your comments into consideration in the preparation of the work program. You can be reassured, and in particular, I will try to really prioritize and make an effort of bringing coherence, because you are seeing this coherence. We need to now be able to reflect it in the work program. And if I've missed something because I was not connected at the beginning, Peter, honestly, just say it yourself.
Perfect. No, thanks. That was perfect, Lorena. And thanks to you all for your messages here in the chat function. Great pleasure, and hope that we see each other in real, not in a not too distant future. All the very best. Take good care. Thank you.
Thank you.